This video is going to have a look at an example of completing a product multiplication matrix. So the steps to complete a product multiplication matrix. Step one will be to confirm that a product matrix does exist. Now a product matrix will exist when we have the same number of columns in the first matrix and the same number of rows in the second matrix. So if you're not sure on how to check for that, go back and have a look at the video introducing a product matrix, and it will explain how to test to see whether a product matrix exists. Step two will be to multiply the elements of each row in the first matrix. So we're looking at each row in the first matrix and by the elements of each column in the second matrix. So that will become important when we go ahead and complete our product multiplication matrix. And step three will be to add the products of each element together to form the product matrix. So let's have a look at an example of how we can apply a product matrix multiplication. So in the example, we want to determine the product matrix Mn, and we've got our matrix for M and our matrix for N. So before we commence, we'll just check that we've got a product matrix. So our order for M is going to be 2 times 2 because we've got 2 rows and 2 columns. The order for N is going to be 2 times 2 as well. So the number of columns in our first matrix equals the number of rows in our second matrix. So we have got a product matrix that we can use. And then the order of that product matrix is going to be 2 times 2. And that's the number of rows in the first matrix and the number of columns in the second matrix. So our final matrix is going to have an order of 2 times 2. So let's move on to complete the multiplication. So step 2 is to multiply the elements of each row in the first matrix by the elements of each row on the second matrix. So the easiest way of completing step 2 is to follow the following steps. So take the first column of the first matrix and multiply it by the first row of the second matrix. And then take the second column of the first matrix and multiply it by the second row of the second matrix. So filling in our numbers, the first column of the first matrix is 3 and 5, and the second column is going to be 6 and 2. The first row of the second matrix is 1 and 8. The second row is going to be 5 and 4. So now we want to go ahead and complete the multiplication of each of those elements. So 1 times 3 is 3, 8 times 3 is 24, 1 times 5 is 5, 8 times 5 is 40. Then in our second table, we've got 5 times 6 is 30, 4 times 6 is 24, 5 times 2 is 10, 4 times 2 is 8. So now that we've completed our two tables, we can add each of those corresponding items in each table to form our final matrix. So it will be 3 plus 3 is equal to 33, 24 plus 24 is equal to 48, 5 plus 10 is equal to 15, and 40 plus 8 is equal to 48. So that is the way that I would recommend to complete the product matrix multiplications by preparing a couple of tables. So because our order for our product matrix was 2 by 2, we've used 2 tables of 2 by 2. That may change depending on what the order of the product matrix is going to be. Once you've filled out those tables, you can add each element together to get your final product mix. So that is an example of a product matrix multiplication.